Hello everybody, welcome back to Stats Cosmos. In previous video, we have learned about the basics of statistics. Now, in this video, let us try to gain knowledge of descriptive statistics and what do descriptive statistics allow us to do. We are going to see in this video the definition, objective and approaches for descriptive statistics. Now let's begin with definition. Descriptive statistics describe, show and summarize the basic features of a dataset found in a given study, presented in a summary that describes the data sample and its measurements. That is, it allows for the ease of data visualization, which is to be presented in a meaningful and understandable way, even for a common man. Now let's see what is the objective of descriptive statistics. The main objective is to elucidate the data in clear, simple and understandable language. It also helps us to map out the general path for the further analysis. It aims to describe the characteristics of data and are usually presented in the form of tables and graphs. These are used to present quantitative descriptions in a manageable form. Especially in case of research study, we may have lots of measures to be studied, or we may have to measure a large number of people or large number of variables on any measure. Descriptive statistics help us to simplify these large amounts of data in a sensible way, which makes our research of study easier. Now let us see what are the approaches for descriptive statistics. There are two approaches. One is graphical and other one is numerical. Let us see one by one what they are. First comes graphical. A picture is said to be more effective than words for describing a particular thing. A graphical representation is a geometrical image of a set of data. It enables us to think about a statistical problem in visual terms. It is an effective and economic device for the presentation, understanding and interpretation of the already collected data here. There are so many graphs available, around 30 plus. Here I took a few among them which are most commonly used. Among them, the first one is line graph. Line graphs are simple mathematical graphs that are drawn on the graph paper, which are mostly used for this statistical data. These are plotted by connecting one variable on the horizontal x-axis and the other variable of data on the vertical y-axis. So here I took a small example for line graph. Here is an example. Temperatures recorded for different days. Days are taken on x-axis and temperatures on y-axis. First of all, we'll keep dots on every plot and then we'll join that dots to get the line graph. So this is a simple example for line graph. Next we have a line plot. It shows the frequency of data on a given number line. X symbol is placed above a number line each time when the data occurs again. So let me show an example for this line plot. Here we took pets for each student, how many pets are there. So this is how a line plot looks like. I hope you all understood this. Now let's see what is bar graph then. In bar graphs, data is represented by bars, and this can be made in any direction, that is either vertical or horizontal. The bars are taken of equal weight and start from a common horizontal or vertical line, and their length indicates the corresponding values of statistical data. So let me show an example for this. There are so many types of bars graphs available, like simple graph, multiple graph and subdivided graph. For each, here I am going to show one example for you. First, let us see what is simple bar graph. So this is a simple bar graph. Here I took different companies' earnings in a particular year, 2007. So this is how bar graphs looks like. Okay, and length of each bar you can see here, which indicates the earning in a different company. Okay, next let us see what is the multiple bar diagram. This is how a multiple bar diagram looks, and here I took the earnings of different companies for 3 years, 2006, 2007 and 2008. Okay, next we have subdivided bar diagram. See here, different companies and their expenditures of different families. 3 families I took here, and this is how a subdivided bar diagram looks like. First of all, we'll convert the data into percentages, and that percentages we are going to plot here. Okay, next we have pie graph. It is a circle in which different components are represented to the sections or portions of a circle generally. How to draw a pie diagram? This is very important to understand. First of all, the value of each category will express in terms of percentages of the total. Okay, and then the angle 360 degrees is divided in the same percentages. So where we are finding out the percentages, this angle 360 degrees also will divide. Then at the center of a circle, these angles are drawn simultaneously starting from a particular radius. Any radius we can take and we can start at that point. So in this way we get a set of sectorial areas proportional to the values of each item here. So how it is, let me show an example for you. See, here I took an example of expenses of a particular family. Okay, for rent how much it is, for grocery, transport, current, school fees and savings. And this is how we'll get pie graph. You understood, right? So now let's move to histogram. Histogram is essentially a bar graph of a frequency distribution. It can be constructed for equal as well as unequal class intervals. What do you mean by equal class interval and unequal class interval? For suppose if I'm taking a student data of marks, I wanted to know students who got marks in between the intervals like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50 and so on. Then these are equal intervals. 10 to 20, 10 is the difference. 20 to 30, 10 is the difference. 30 to 40, 10 is the difference, right? So equal class intervals. We may also have sometimes unequal class intervals like 10 to 30, 20 is the difference. Next immediately it may be 30 to 40. Okay, so which is 10 is the difference. Again 40 to 70. So 30 is the difference. So in this way unequal class intervals are given for you. Then we may convert it into the equal class intervals and we can plot an histogram for that. For this also I took an example here. So this is the example for histogram. Here I took customer waiting time at a service center. In seconds we are considering here. Total sample size I took is 32 here. Waiting times I considered on x-axis and the frequencies of repetitions I considered on y-axis, which finally gave me an histogram like this. Next we have frequency polygon. Frequency polygon is a graph that displays the data by using lines generally that connect a point plotted for the frequencies at the midpoints of the classes. The frequencies are represented by the heights of the points. So let me show the graph for you for understanding. First of all, this is the data given to you. You have to find out the midpoints for the given intervals. And that midpoints will consider on x-axis and frequencies will consider on y-axis. After keeping the dots, just join them with lines. So this is how a frequency polygon looks like. Next we have cumulative frequency curve or ogive curve. Ogive curve, we can also sometimes call it as a cumulative frequency polygon also. It is a type of frequency polygon that shows the cumulative frequencies. The cumulative percents are added on the graph from left to right, which plots the cumulative frequency on the y-axis and the class boundary is on the x-axis here. Here I took a small data. Wages, weekly wages and the number of workers. 0 to 20, 10 workers are there. 20 to 40, 20 workers are there, and so on. So this is the data I took. And after plotting an ogive curve, so this is the final output I got. Here I want to explain you what is this less than method and more than method, how to find out this less than cumulative frequencies and more than cumulative frequencies for you. So for this I need to take you to data. So before going to that, here you just observe less than 20 weekly wages. How many number of workers are there who are getting wages less than 20? 10 workers are there. Less than 40, 30 workers are there. So first of all, let me take you to the data once again. Here is the data. So 0 to 20, how many workers are there? 10 workers are there. So 20 to 40, 20 workers are there. So when I am asking you less than 20 wage, how many workers are there who are getting less than 20 wages? So then simply you'll say that 10. If I am asking you how many workers are there who are getting wages less than 40, then less than 40 means even this interval also we have to include. So total 30 number of workers are there who are getting wages less than 40. Similarly, less than 60 means add this 3. 40 plus 20 plus 10. Okay, 70 will get. Next, 60 to 80. So the less than 80 wages, how many number of workers are getting means total 90 workers. So 70 plus 20. Next here, less than 100 means adding all. So all are getting, of course, less than 100 wages only. So 100 is the final value. This is how to find out the less than cumulative frequencies, and this is what the less than method. Next we have more than method also. So that means first of all, if we are starting with more than 100, so how many workers are getting the wages? 0 workers, right? More than 0, how many workers are there if I am asking you? So more than 0 wage, of course every worker is getting more than 0 wage only. So total 100 workers will come into this. Next interval is more than 20, how many are getting? So more than 20 means this we should exclude. 10 workers are getting less than 20. So 100 minus 10 if you do, then we'll get more than 20 cumulative frequency here, which is 90. Next, more than 40. More than 40 wage, how many number of workers are getting? 70 workers. So that is 100 minus 30. So less than 40, how many are getting? That we have to exclude. That's all. It is very simple. Okay. Next, more than 60. More than 60, how many are there? So that we have to calculate here. How can we calculate it? 100 minus 70. If you do, then we'll get more than 60, how many workers are getting wages. Next and last, we have more than 80. From 100, we have to exclude 90 workers. So which will give you the more than 80 cumulative frequency. So first of all, in this way, we have to find out both less than cumulative frequencies, more than cumulative frequencies. And third, we have to plot on y-axis, both values. Here you can see less than ogive. How can we get less than ogive here is by plotting less than cumulative frequencies on y-axis. And by plotting more than cumulative frequencies on y-axis, we'll get more than ogive. Okay. And weekly wages we are going to consider on x-axis here. So that is class boundaries on x-axis. So this is how a ogive curve looks. An ogive curve looks. So now we'll move with stem plot. Stem and leaf diagram is an arrangement of digits that is used to display and order numerical data. This provides a visual summary of our data. The diagram provides a partial sorting of the data and allows us to detect the distributional pattern of the data. How it is, let me show you. Here I took a small example for this. This is a stem and leaf plot. Here is the data. you can observe here in this blue box, 15, 27, 8, 17, 13, 22, 24, 25, 13, 36, 32, 32, 32, repeated 3 times, 28, 43 and 7. This is the data given to you. So how to plot a stem and leaf diagram for this? Here you can see S indicates stem and L indicates a leaf. First of all, unit digits. So that is 7 and 8 we are going to consider here, 0, 7 and 0, 8. Next, tens. We have 13 here, which is repeated twice. Here also 113 is there, and 15, 17 is there. First of all, consider 1 here, which indicates in tens, 13, 13, 15 and 17. So this is how we have to plot. Next, similarly under 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s if are there in the data, 50s, 60s, like that, we have to plot. So this is how a stem and leaf plot looks. Next we have box and whisker plot. This plot diagram summarizes the data by dividing into 4 parts generally. Box whisker shows the range, lower value, higher value that is, and middlemost values, that is median value, and 2 more quarters. First of all, let me show how this box and whisker plot looks. We'll concentrate on the lower extreme value and higher extreme value, that is upper extreme, maximum value and minimum value. And we also find out the 3 quarters, that is first quartile, second quartile and third quartile. Here quartiles is nothing but which divides the data into 4 equal parts. Each part is 1 quartile. So totally 4 quarters will be available. And formulas for this quartiles, all this we are going to discuss in coming videos. I'm going to make a video on dispersion. In that, we'll study about the quartiles. So, and let me show you along with the data how to plot this. So, this is the data I took: 50, 60, 66, 70, 75, 80, 85, 89 and 96. First of all, I have to find out the minimum value, maximum value and the 3 quarters as I told you. Here, median is the second quartile. So, first quartile, second quartile and third quartile we have to find. So, all this we are going to plot by using this. Okay, and this is how box and whisker plot looks like. Okay, I hope you all understood this. Next, we have pictograms. A pictogram, we can also call it as a pictograph also, which conveys its meaning through the pictorial resemblance to a physical object. Pictogram is one of the simplest form of data visualization. So before we used to use this pictures only for conveying the messages, for conveying the information. So let me show one example for this also. This is a very simple example I took. Number of children and their favorite fruits. So through pictures we'll try to display our data. Okay. So these are the various graphs which we use commonly in our daily life. Now let us see what is numerical method of approach for descriptive statistics. So in this we'll study 2 things. One is central tendency, which concentrates on a central point, and other one is dispersion, which conveys about the spread. First of all, what is central tendency? The main purpose for obtaining a measure of central tendency is to find a single value that will serve as the respective of the entire distribution of scores, which usually this value is the average of the scores, which could be the mean, median or mode also sometimes. So central tendency is a tendency which concentrates on a single value and which is the representative of the entire data. So in this totally 3 forms are there, like mean, median and mode. So when to use mean and when to go with the median and mode. So all this we are going to discuss in the coming video, which I am going to make on this central tendency. Here under numerical method, we have one more one, which is dispersion. Under dispersion, we have two measures. One is absolute measure and another one is relative measure. What is absolute measure here and what is dispersion here? So let us try to know that. Dispersion is used to measure the variability in the data or to see how spread out the data is. It measures how much the scores in a distribution vary from the typical score. For example, if I wanted to know how many students got 70 plus marks, so generally 70-75 plus we treat it as a merit percentage, right? I wanted to know how many students got merit percentage. So our concentration will be on that central point, which is 75 plus. How many students got around that 75 plus? Very near to 75. So all this data will consider. That variation we can study by using this dispersion constant and how typical that particular value is and how it is varying from the other scores. So all this we can study by using this dispersion concept. And what is absolute measure then? This method of absolute expresses the variations in terms of the average of deviations of observations, like standard or mean deviations, like this. Okay, so generally it includes the range, mean deviation, quartile deviation and standard deviation. We have one more measure, which is relative measure. Relative measures of dispersions are calculated as ratios or percentages. These are always dimensionless generally, and they are particularly useful for making comparisons between separate data sets or different experiments that might use different units sometimes. They may also called as coefficients of dispersion also. For example, let me give one example for relative measure of dispersion. One measure of dispersion is the ratio of standard deviation to the mean. Standard deviation generally denoted with sigma and mean is denoted with x bar. So sigma by x bar is one of the coefficient of dispersion measure. So I hope you all understood about the central tendency, what is central tendency, what is dispersion, and what are the various measures under dispersion. So for all this in depth along with the mathematical formulas, so we'll be discussing in the coming videos. Thanks for watching.